Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy. Hey, friends, welcome to Crime Hotel. Your hosts, Carrie and James, here. And I'm finally back in the saddle.
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you, my friend, for not only picking up my slack, but hauling my slack for the last several months.
Nah.
It's been
a pleasure.
I am so stoked to be back to the research writing grind, to highlight the lesser known cases, to bring a voice to the victims, both dead and alive. So let's celebrate getting through some really fucking hard these last 6 months with a drink.
Yes.
What are you savoring tonight, my friend?
I am drinking it's a strawberry bliss seltzer. It's light and refreshing and just what I needed. So it's tasty.
It's been beautiful weather. It was beautiful today. And I also had the same idea. I'm drinking a mojito over ice.
Ooh,
and it is so
nice.
refreshing and like crisp. It's like that perfect summer drink. Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers to you. Clink, clink. Yeah.
And we're starting with a content warning because the victims in the case I'm covering today were young children. It's the end of May here in the United States. We recently observed Mother's Day. And while for some this day is marked with celebration and love for others,
it's also May anywhere in the world.
Because of the way I said it, I was trying to. I inserted the United States too soon in that sentence. Clearly, what I meant to say was it's the month of May right now in the entire fucking world. And here in the United States, we recently observed Mother's Day. We observe it towards the beginning part of May every year. Lots of mothers are super excited, lots of celebration and love, but for others, it's a really complicated and hard day. So if right now you happen to live in a universe where it is the month of May, and you might be in the United States where we just recently celebrated Mother's Day, and it's just the heart is too loud for an episode covering the deaths of 2 young children for you right now, we completely understand, and we'll see you next episode. So these children are young. Their lives were horrifically cut short. And it wasn't that long ago. It was in the early morning hours of Monday, February 17th, 2020. So like literally weeks before the entire fucking globe shut down for COVID. So you can just imagine. So that's what we're going into. So that's why I said that content warning. The evening before, on Sunday, February 16th, 5-year-old William Beyer, who went by Will, and 3-year-old Danielle Beyer, his sister, who went by Dani, they were motherfucking excited. Yep, they were excited because their mom, Melissa, and their stepdad, Tyler, had taken them to Walmart. They each got to pick out a toy in a movie. Do you remember those days? I remember those days. For us, it was Kmart. And oh man, every once in a while when we were extra special, we being my brother Brad and I, we each got to pick out something like when we had been like really good kids. The trick with that, though, is we both had to be fucking good. Like it was an all or nothing deal. So oftentimes I'd be like, God damn it, Brad. Because of you and your fucker. Stupid. You don't get a fucking toy. Anyway, Will and Dani, they got to go to Walmart. They got to pick out a toy and a movie. And then they got to eat at the Subway that was inside the Walmart for dinner.
Oh, man.
So that was like an epic night for 5-year-old Will and 3-year-old Dani.
That's an epic night for me.
All this excitement, though, wore little 3-year-old Dani out, and she straight up fell asleep on the drive home. So, as they were driving home to their Kaukauna, Wisconsin home.
What?
Yes, I thought that would get you. So, for those of you not familiar with the Fox Valley area of Northeast Wisconsin, this is the area in which James and I live. And Kaukauna is like a bloop, hop, skip, and a jump from where we live. Like, we're talking a matter of 15, 20 minutes that we're in like the middle of Kaukauna. So, and we have friends that live there. So it's like really, it's like our backyard, and it's it's a little close to home.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they lived in a home, in an apartment in Kaukauna. Tyler carried sleeping Dani up the stairs to their upper level duplex, put her to bed. She was zonked. She didn't even wake up from, like when you try to transition them, sleeping little fuckers, they're like time bombs when you try to transition them from the car to the house, and then they wake up and then it's monster hour all over again. Dani was so tired, she didn't even wake up. So Tyler decided, all right, he's just removed her jacket because this is February in Wisconsin. It's fucking cold out. He removed her jacket and just with all of her and her shoes and with all of her clothes, just put her right into bed, tucked her in, and she was out for the count. But 5-year-old Will, her older brother, he was a big boy. He had more energy than Dani. He was probably down to one nap a day. So he wasn't ready for bed yet. Instead, what he wanted to do is he wanted to settle in and watch that movie that he got to pick out at Walmart. So Melissa and Tyler let him do that. But around 9:30 p.m. or so, Melissa was like, hey, buddy, it's time for bed. You're 5 and it's really, really late. So you can finish your movie in the morning. And so that gave him something to look forward to. And off to bed he went, giving hugs and kisses to Melissa and Tyler. And that was it. Will and Dani are in their beds. Everything is great. They're getting a good night's sleep. He gets to start the day with his movie. Dani's probably going to want to watch her movie the next day too. The morning of Monday, February 17th, 2020, Melissa and Tyler's world was utterly fucking destroyed. Like most mornings, Melissa went into Will's and Dani's bedroom, so they slept in bunk beds in their little bedroom. They shared a bedroom. My brother and I did that too. And she went in there to wake them up, which was a little odd because they're 5 and 3 and they wake up at like the butt ass crack of dawn. So she goes in there to wake him up and she couldn't really make sense of what she was looking at because it looked like Will had spilled a red drink all over himself, like Kool-Aid, just everywhere, all over himself, his covers, like everything. And she walked over to his bed and she kind of pulled back the covers around, like simultaneously as she's pulling back those covers. That's when she registered that there were holes in Will's neck and cuts to his neck. And she also registered the fact that both Will and Dani were like statues. And it was silent. And then she lost her fucking mind. And she screamed out to Tyler to call 911, who was probably real, like in another room or doing something else and really confused. Shortly after 7 a.m., 2 Kaukauna police officers arrived at the duplex. Officer Charlie Vosters and Brian Schaefer, they met an absolutely unhinged Melissa, who directed them toward the bedroom. And it really took no time for Vosters and Schaefer to confirm that Will and Dani they were dead. And it appeared that they had been dead for a while because the blood on and around their bodies had actually started to dry so much that it was cracking. So it had been several hours. Can you imagine this scene? I can't even fucking imagine this scene.
No.
Vosters and Schaefer knew this was a homicide. They jumped into action. They're probably scarred for life from seeing what they saw because they were the first on the scene. They secured the scene. They called in the detectives. They also called in the other scene processor reinforcements like your crime scene techs, like your blood spatter specialists, your photographers, your bag and taggers, that kind of thing. And then they began focusing on witness interviews. And they started with Melissa and Tyler because obviously they were the only ones at home with Will and Dani that evening. Meanwhile, the bodies of young Will and Dani were transported to University of Wisconsin at Madison's Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine, which is located in Madison, Wisconsin, for autopsy, which these autopsies were conducted by Dr. Doug Kelly, who was the deputy chief medical examiner for the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office. And if you're following along to the details, you're probably asking the same thing I asked. Why did Dr. Kelly, who works for the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office, conduct the autopsies on Will's and Dani's bodies when they were in Madison? Because I was thinking jurisdiction.
Right.
And was surprised it wasn't a doctor working in Madison's medical examiner's office. I was surprised. Number one, I assumed we being Outagamie County, didn't have a medical examiner's office. And that's why
it would be outsourced.
Right, exactly. Well, it turns out counties all across the state of Wisconsin actually very regularly share forensic resources, especially if those resources are for complex or high stake cases. So basically, Outagamie County, where the city of Kaukauna is situated, made the decision to send Will's and Dani's bodies to UW-Madison's state-of-the-art forensic pathology facility. Then they specifically tapped Dr. Kelly out of the Milwaukee's medical examiner office because Dr. Kelly is one of Wisconsin State's most experienced child homicide forensic pathologists.
Oh, wow.
So basically, Outagamie County was like, we want the best on this because these two young children lost their lives. So Outagamie County chose the autopsy location and the pathologist based on quality and expertise rather than jurisdiction.
Nice.
How fucking refreshing is that?
Yeah, that's really cool.
There was no dick slinging over jurisdiction. And like, they just were like, boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what Dr. Kelly learned from these autopsies is gruesome and fucking heartbreaking. Now, when I say that, people listening, you might be like going to the worst case scenario. There was no sexual assault or abuse. So that is great. Their bodies weren't post-mortemly mutilated in like horrible fashion. It wasn't anything like that. But here we go. What Dr. Kelly learned was that 3-year-old Dani died from a puncture wound or wounds to her neck. Her injuries were intentional and fatal, and they were very consistent with a sharp force attack. In and out, straight in and out. Very deliberate. So it wasn't necessarily a knife, but some other kind of object that was hefty enough to create these types of puncture holes. But it also didn't specify if it was like a screwdriver or something like that, which from all of the reporting, there's talk about a screwdriver and there's talk about knives. So it was one or the other. 5-year-old Will died from puncture wounds to his neck and his head. And like Dani, his injuries were intentional and fatal. Dr. Kelly noted that the wounds on both children were extremely similar, suggesting only one weapon had been used in both attacks, either some type of screwdriver or some type of like tool like that, or a knife that wasn't a super wide blade, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
While there is no reporting on who was attacked first, I believe it was Dani because Will had defensive wounds on both of his hands and Dani had no defensive wounds. So I think what happened was the perpetrator went into the bedroom, took care of Dani first. Will woke up. When he started getting attacked, he was trying to ward off the attack and he had wounds to his hands. Yeah. So the reporting didn't actually say who was attacked first, but I believe it was Dani.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Fucking heartbreaking. Clearly, this was a homicide of 2 sweet babies. So what the fuck happened here? Like, what happened? Children, especially that young, they are truly innocent victims.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the fuck is going on.
Right. How can you fucking stab a 3-year-old in the neck?
I don't know. This whole case is mind-boggling. When we get into more of the details, you're going to be so you're going to be pissed. This is going to piss you off. Let's start with where the murders took place. Will and Dani lived with their mom, Melissa, and their stepdad, Tyler, in a small apartment located on Crooks Avenue in Kaukauna. They lived in a duplex that had been transformed into two smaller units, one upper level unit, one ground floor unit. Melissa and Tyler with Will and Dani lived in that upper level unit. And to get to that upper level unit, you had to take a set of side exterior wooden stairs that took you to a side door. And it was this side door that was basically the upper unit's front door.
Okay.
And this orientation is kind of an important detail. And we're going to get back to it a little bit later, but no one heard nothing. And I think the orientation of how you got into the unit, the upper unit, didn't help that. So we'll talk about that later. After interviewing both Melissa and Tyler, investigators were comfortable clearing them as suspects. It was pretty fucking clear they were out of their minds with what was going on and the fact that Will and Dani had been brutally murdered. And they were asked the basic questions so a timeline could be established. When was the last time you saw your children alive? Who other than you has access to your home? Can you identify anywhere someone may have forcibly tried to enter your home? Were you expecting any visitors or overnight guests? Do you have any enemies? Is there someone that your children don't like or that don't like your children? Like anything and everything. Well, at the end of the day, Melissa and Tyler were really good parents. They fucking loved those children with every fiber of their beings. And Tyler, even though he was stepdad, it was very obvious that he loved them like they were his own. And that speaks to me because my dad adopted my brother and I, and he loves us like we're his own. And so it takes a really good character to love another's children like that.
Right.
And that was Tyler. And they had a small apartment, right? But that apartment was packed full of love and family. And detectives realized this too. And their shock was real and it was palpable and it was thick. And I'm convinced their hearts are still broken today because this did not happen that long ago. This was just over 6 years ago, literally right on the heels of the world shutting down to COVID. So that time in their lives had to have been unparalleled sadness. I have a lot of pain in my heart for them because they were probably isolated afterwards too because of COVID. I just
stuck in that quiet house surrounded by all like just a million reminders of those kids that weren't there and not being able to escape and if they needed to, or maybe it was comforting. I don't know. But
I don't know. And I imagine there was probably a lot of guilt there. They were sleeping right next door. That apartment is not big. How did they not hear anything? So investigators did secure the scene. They conducted a preliminary walkthrough of that tiny apartment. They discovered Will and Dani deceased in their beds. They made note of the particulars, their positions, their injuries, the condition of their bedroom. And after securing a search warrant, they collected anything that might be evidence. Technicians photographed everything. They documented blood patterns, bedding, room layouts. They collected all the physical evidence, fibers, biological material, all that shit. They also searched extensively for the weapon. They never found it. Never found the weapon, really. While the techs worked the scene, the detectives turned their attention to potential electronic evidence. They pulled traffic camera video from the local and immediate surrounding area. They accessed home doorbell videos, home security camera videos. They checked for any recent service calls to the home. They began putting together what could be a conceivable timeline of events. When interviews started, they wanted to talk to Will and Dani's biological father, Matthew Beyer. They wanted to talk to anyone that may have had access to the home. They wanted to talk to any and all neighbors to see if they saw or heard anything out of the ordinary or that they don't typically see or hear, all the things. With neighbors, like I mentioned, no one heard nothing. No one saw nothing. No one knew nothing. Probably because those exterior wooden stairs are on the side of the house. And it's like on the side of the house that's next to another house that the side of that house facing the Crooks Avenue bifurcated duplex house was like not the living area of that house, which was on the other side. So if you look at the orientation, I don't know if any of that just made sense. It made sense in my head, but basically the way that the house is oriented on the street with those side wooden stairs, so they don't make a lot of noise. and compared to like steel or rookety stuff. And where other houses and their orientation, it's conceivable that someone could have crept up there without being heard.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, the other thing is that the weapon wasn't a loud weapon. It wasn't like a gun. So
Yeah.
like a perpetrator could get unnoticed. If Will woke up in enough time, I don't think Will woke up before he was started to get attacked. I think what happened, and none of this is in reporting, so it's pure speculation because I'm like, children scream and cry, especially 5 and 3-year-olds. That's their go-to for communication still. And so I'm like, why did no one hear the kids make noise? I think what may have happened was Dani was murdered in her sleep. And by the time, and Will woke up in the middle of it and didn't even have time to scream, I think that's why no one heard or saw nothing.
Wow.
So getting in front of Matthew Beyer, they wanted to get in front of him. That was the kid's biological father. They wanted to get his story, figure out what his relationship to the kids was, rule him in or out, whatever. They just needed to get him crossed off the list so that they could continue to work their way, like that inner circle, and then work their way out.
Yeah.
Detective Kruger of the Kaukauna Police Department had the difficult task of notifying Matthew Beyer, the children's biological father, of Will and Dani's death. So he was the poor schmuck that got to go track Matthew Beyer down and say, I have very unfortunate news for you. Kruger later said Beyer showed, quote, very little initial emotional response, which made it important to interview him promptly to either eliminate or include. Everybody responds to grief different. Maybe he was in just fucking shock and like going through the motions. Although the exact date of the death notification does not appear in any verified public records or court transcripts, we do know that Beyer was interviewed on February 27th of 2020, 10 days after the children were found. Okay. And because the children were found on the morning of February 17th, the notification occurred sometime, obviously, within that 10-day window, but probably closer to February 17th, because next of kin notifications generally have a sense of urgency because you can get more information. So the reason why I bring that up is because it took 10 days from the time the police were called when the children's bodies were found to Beyer's first interview, because there was some stuff that the police wanted to get their hands on.
Okay.
Because the way that Beyer responded to Detective Kruger, when Detective Kruger was like, hey, I'm sorry to tell you, but your 5-year-old and your 3-year-old were tragically taken. And the way that he responded was like, oh, okay. Well, thanks. I don't know if that was how it was, but it was so like no concern, no emotion, whatever, that I'm sure Detective Kruger's hair on the back of his neck went blink.
Yeah, no shit.
So they were like,
oh,
okay, we have some things we need to look at with this Mr. Matthew Beyer.
Yeah.
Led by Special Agent Jay Urgis of the Wisconsin Department of Criminal Investigation and Detective Kruger, the interview with Beyer gleaned some interesting information. It was also what he didn't say. Aside from consistently displaying a kind of like almost eerie emotional stillness toward the deaths of his young children, which was really off-putting to Urgis and Kruger, Beyer's vibe was basically really controlled and very detached. No tears, no questions, which was very odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yucky. As Urgis and Kruger were asking questions, Beyer repeatedly kept steering the conversation toward his high amount and immense resentment toward Melissa, the children's mother. His most persistent fixation was that he did not believe Will and Dani were really his. He was suspicious that Melissa had been cheating on him, and that guy was the father of the children, because he didn't feel that the children really looked like him, you see.
Oh, God.
So Out of his suspicions, his feelings grew of being betrayed by Melissa. And as a result, he refused to engage in any kind of co parenting or any involvement with the children because, quote unquote, they aren't his because they don't really look like him.
Oh my God.
There is no evidence that his beliefs or suspicions were grounded by fact. There's nothing reported on a DNA test, a court challenge, a paternity dispute, nothing. He didn't take any legal action to try to prove or disprove his paternity to those children. He didn't do anything that remotely corroborated his claims. Nothing.
Fantastic.
Beyer also complained extensively about having to pay child support.
God damn. Yeah, he's
ding,
a
ding,
dick.
Now we're actually getting somewhere here, I think. He talked and talked and talked and talked about feeling financially burdened by Melissa. Felt like she was fully taking advantage of him by using someone else's kids against him to extort money from him through the guise of child support.
Oh, fuck off, man.
Unfortunately for Beyer, Special Agent Yurgis and Detective Kruger weren't convinced either because, well, Beyer didn't really do himself any favors. He withheld information until he was confronted with inconsistencies. And that's when his story started to change. He changed his story when evidence that Yurgis and Kruger were like, well, what about this? If that evidence did support what he was saying, he'd be like, oh my gosh, I just remembered. That's what he would do. Details when he was cornered would come out as, oh my gosh, I just remembered.
What? Damnedest thing.
You just jogged my memory.
Knee him in a scrotum.
Yurgis saying Kruger saw Beyer's intense resentment toward Melissa as the possible motive.
Yeah.
Clearly.
That's what I'm feeling. Yeah.
His anger about paying child support. There was, fun fact, a very almost about to happen upcoming custody hearing.
Oh.
And this was all about Melissa having control. So basically, he described the year 2019 as a great year because he had cut off contact with Melissa and the kids. But then in the same breath, he would say he'd be dead before she got full custody of Will and Dani.
Jesus Christ, one of those guys.
Yes. What was incredibly notable, though, was what Beyer didn't talk about during his interview. He didn't talk about Will. He didn't talk about Dani. Their personalities, their lives, the love he had for them, the fact that he couldn't believe or wrap his mind around the fact that they were gone, his grief, his pain, nothing. He didn't talk about any of that. He only talked about his finances, his frustrations, his grievances, and his new family. Yes, Beyer had a new family. Beyer had remarried to a woman named Erica. Beyer had moved in with Erica into her apartment in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Manitowoc is like a 45 to 55-minute drive from Kaukauna. It sits along Lake Michigan. It's very beautiful out there. They have a new baby together, him and Erica. This was Beyer's fresh start, his happier chapter, moving on from whatever shit show past he had with Melissa, moving on from Will and Dani. But really, this is all we know. There are no other details, credible reporting details on Erica, her last name, anything about their newborn baby, any details about Erica and Beyer's relationship, when and how they met, any extended family, Erica's background, details about their home life, nothing. Like nothing. This first interview, because there was another, with Detective Kruger and Special Agent Yurgis did not end in dramatic fashion. They ended their questions routinely. Beyer stuck to his story. Of course, I didn't kill Will and Dani. Of course, I haven't even been to Kaukauna. I haven't been to Kaukauna since fucking December 2020 or 2019. Of course, I was at home at my apartment in Manitowoc the evening that those children were murdered. Of course, I have intense resentment toward Melissa. I mean, wouldn't you? And I really do doubt that Will and Dan are my own. But of course, I wasn't involved. I'm focused on my new family, yo. Well, Yurgis and Kruger didn't arrest Beyer at this time. They let him walk out because they wanted to continue gathering surveillance footage. They wanted the autopsy findings from Doug Kelly. We already talked about those, but at this point in the timeline, they didn't have that yet. They wanted more witness statements. This interview was purely for information, and they wanted to build that case. What was really important out of this interview was that Beyer said what he said, and he didn't say what he didn't say. And that's exactly what ultimately sank Beyer.
Oh, okay.
It took Jurgis. Wait, is it Jurgis? I looked this up. I think it's Jurgis.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Oh my God. So it's probably Jurgis. Okay. It took them a few months to gather this evidence. On June 4th, they called Beyer in for another interview. And this time, they were much more confrontational. They were like, bruh. So we did some digging, some fact finding, police work, and we have some questions. And they started asking questions. Where were you the evening of February 16th, 2020? What were you doing? Who were you with? Then what did you do? And Beyer stuck to his story. I was at home in my apartment in Manitowoc. I wasn't anywhere near Kaukauna. Haven't been to Kaukauna in months. Wasn't me. And that's when Jurgis and Kruger started laying out the evidence they had amassed, suggesting Beyer was a big fat fucking liar.
Yeah, getting that.
And they were like, hey, Cockrinkle, we've got you on traffic camera footage in your sexy little silver minivan leaving Manitowoc around 2:30 in the motherfucking morning of February 17th, 2020. We were able to track your foxy minivan all along I-43 corridor and into the Fox Valley. And ironically, you know what's the weirdest fucking part about all of this video surveillance footage is that all the timestamps from these cameras damn near line up perfectly with that trip taking about 45 to 55 minutes. Does that help ring any bells?
What?
And Beyer was like, oh, fuck, that's right. My bad, you guys. Seriously, I literally just completely forgot. That's right. Now that you helped me remember, I did leave my house that morning and I took a drive, but I wasn't in Kaukauna. And they were like, are you sure about that? Because we also have you on residential camera footage suggesting otherwise. Okay. I was in Kaukauna, but I wasn't anywhere near Melissa's house.
Oh my God.
Well, then why'd you say you were home? Well, because I went looking for drugs. I went looking for drugs and I didn't want to admit it. And that's why I told you I was home. And you weren't anywhere near Melissa's. This is how I'm envisioning this fucking stupid interview going, right? You weren't anywhere near Melissa's. Nope. You sure about that? Yep. Okay. Well, we've also got you on business surveillance cameras and residential security cameras. Would you be curious to know that we have you on footage near Crooks Avenue at about 3:20 a.m., give or take? And as Jurgis and Kruger engaged in that beautiful dance between investigator and perpetrator, Beyer started going through different versions of his story. So fucking stupid. Like they're going to be like, oh,
what a dumbass.
So the fifth version's the truth. Version number 1, he hadn't been to Kaukauna in months. Version number 2, he had been to Kaukauna, but he hadn't been anywhere near Melissa's house. Version number 3, okay. He had been near Melissa's house that morning, but he sure as shit didn't go inside. Okay, version 4, fine. He did go inside Melissa's house, but he was only looking for drugs. I'm sure Jurgis and Kruger perked up real fucking quick when he finally admitted that, yes, I was actually inside Melissa's house in the early morning hours of February 17th, 2020. Beyer put himself at the crime scene. This is how smart Beyer is. During the time window, the children were attacked. They asked Beyer, what the fuck were you doing when you were inside Melissa's house? He was like, I was just exploring. I went into Will's and Dani's room. I saw them sleeping. But remember, guys, I'm telling you, God honest truth, I was looking for drugs. I for sure didn't hurt Will and Dani. Someone else did that.
Because the drugs are kept in the kid's bedroom.
Right. I feel like this was probably a pivotal point in the interview. Like, I can imagine Jurgis and Kruger exchanged like the briefest of side glances to each other in that like, oh yeah, time to circle around this motherfucker like a trapped rat kind of way. Like I'm sure they were like, it's time to go in, and they put their gloves on. So after Beyer finished spewing his fourth stupid fucking version of events, they were like, Oh, right. Fuck, we meant to tell you. We had a chance to have a nice chat with your lovely wife, Erica. And you see, shit ain't adding up, Beyer. It's not
Mhm.
adding up. What investigators learned from Erica was super interesting and super relevant. So Erica is a badass. She voluntarily spoke with authorities. So score some points for Erica on integrity.
Nice. Yeah.
She also completely cooperated right away and consistently cooperated throughout the entire investigation. So more points for Erica.
Yeah, good
She
for
shared,
her.
yeah, she did not shy away from the hard here. She shared that, yes, she had seen her husband return home to their apartment in Manitowoc very early on February 17th. This lines up with the surveillance camera timelines. She shared that no, Beyer not being home in the middle of night is not normal. It was quite unexpected and, yes, very out of routine and character because you see, we have a new baby at home. And yes, I definitely saw blood on the khaki pants he was wearing. And also, I happened to notice that there were 2 knives missing from the collection my husband has. I have no idea when they disappeared or where they went, but I can tell you they're not there.
Whoa. Thanks, Erica.
I know, right? Erica was like, kaboosh, this is what I know. And that is a
Wow.
shady motherfucker.
Yeah.
Investigators asked Erica if she handled the khakis at all. Maybe she washed them. She's like, nope, I have no idea where he put the khakis. They're fucking gone. I never washed them. I never touched them. I didn't throw them away. I never got anywhere near them. I assume my husband threw them away, but he never mentioned anything about it to me.
Mm.
But look, his behavior that morning was for sure unusual and out of routine. And he was really super, super stressed out about that upcoming custody hearing with Melissa, and he really didn't like her. So this was the nuts and bolts of Erica's interview with Jurgis and Kruger.
Wow.
And I bet the look on Beyer's face was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. On June 5th, 2020, Jurgis and Kruger arrested Beyer and charged him with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 1 count of burglary, breaking into a dwelling, and he was booked into the Outagamie County Jail.
Nice.
Would you be surprised if I told you that this ass clown attempted a jailbreak 2 days later?
What? I mean, no. No, I'm not surprised because he's a fucking ding-dong dipshit. But also, I guess not. I'm not surprised.
So around 10:30 p.m. on June 7th, Byers and his new best friend forever, Demetrius Williams, who of his own accord was on jail for his own homicide charges, took a female corrections guard hostage. Williams was able to subdue the officer by threatening her with a sharpened pencil, a good old-fashioned shank, if you will.
Right?
So he
A
subdued her
number
by
2
threatening.
shank.
Yeah, he took this number 2 shank and he held it to her neck and he demanded that she open Byers' cell. Tweedledee and Dum didn't even make it out of the secured area of the jail complex. Staff was like, nope, not today, motherfuckers. And they got a hold of the escape attempt real quick. As a resident, I'm very proud of our Outagamie County Jail. Beyer got 5 years in prison for the escape attempt. He got 5 years in prison for taking a hostage or being party to taking a hostage. Those were to be served concurrently. So it was basically like he got 5 years for both. And then he got 5 years of extended supervision and 500 hours of community service for that little stunt.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they put him right back in the clinker. Like, dumbass. Jury selection started December 1st, 2022. And the trial officially kicked off with opening statements on December 16th of the same year at the Outagamie County Courthouse in Appleton, Wisconsin. Good old Appleton, Wisconsin, which is right next to Kaukauna. Appleton is where I live, right next to Nina, which is where James lives. So it's all right there. The Honorable Judge Mark McGinnis presided over both jury selection and the trial. The prosecution stipulated that Beyer drove from Manitowoc to Kaukauna in the early morning hours of February 17th, 2020. Surveillance footage places him at the scene of the murders. Beyer's story changed repeatedly. His resentment toward Melissa and the upcoming custody hearing provided a clear motive, and the physical evidence clearly shows guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. the blood on his khakis, the missing knives, the fact that he was literally in his children's bedroom on the same day and during the actual time frame the murders were committed. Highly circumstantial, I would say. The defense countered, though. Yes, but there's no DNA or any scrap of forensic evidence directly tying Beyer to the murders. They postulated that investigators rushed to judgment, narrowed in on Beyer right from the get-go, and never bothered to fully investigate properly anyone else. The timeline was purely coincidental, and all of these leads to the state not being able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Beyer killed his son Will and his daughter Dani because he was just looking for drugs. The prosecution had witnesses that gave testimony. Special Agent Urgis, Detective Kruger, Melissa and Tyler Schuth, the children's mother and stepfather, first responders, Dr. Doug Kelly, who performed the children's autopsies, and Erica, no last name, who was Beyer's wife. Special Agent Urgis gave the longest and most detailed testimony of the entire trial. Digital and forensic specialists used cell tower data and vehicle identification from surveillance footage to show the jury how they were able to track Beyer's exact fucking movements from Manitowoc to Crooks Avenue near Melissa and Tyler's house in Kaukauna on the date and during the time frame of Will's and Dani's killings.
Wow.
Like, it almost feels like a slam dunk, but there was no actual DNA or like fiber evidence.
Yeah.
The trial lasted 3 days, and on December 22nd, Merry fucking Christmas, after deliberating for about 3 hours, give or take, the jury came back with guilty on all counts.
Good.
2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 1 count of burglary. Almost no reaction from Beyer when the foreman read the judgment. The single most powerful piece of evidence for the jurors was all the surveillance and traffic camera footage investigators were able to amass. The residentials, like the doorbells, cameras, the like not just doorbell cameras, but some people actually have like security cameras on their home, all of that stuff, area businesses along Crooks Avenue. Like everybody was like, absolutely, take all that you need. And they were able to literally get like, it was like a slam dunk. Cameras don't lie. They put together an ironclad timeline that directly tied Beyer to the literal bedroom on the night of and during the exact time frame. God. This alone blew up Beyer's alibi that changed 4 times, which was also a compelling piece of evidence for jurors, his nifty shifting stories. Don't forget about Erica's testimony. Erica brought the parade home. Jurors found her credible, they found her consistent, and her statements corroborated the digital evidence. She was like, nope, I'm not going to play this. That poor child is also a victim, but thank God that child wasn't harmed.
Yeah.
The last item that led to a supersonically quick verdict was the 100% lack of forced entry. So whoever killed Will and Dani either had a key or knew how to enter the home without one. Just shy of 4 weeks later, on January 20th, 2023, Beyer was sentenced to life in prison ×2 without the possibility of release, sentences to run concurrently because it doesn't fucking matter. And don't forget, he also received additional time for burglary, hostage taking, jail escape. He's got that
another
supervision.
Dipshittery. Yeah.
500. Yeah. So even if he were to somehow get a new trial and then get chance of parole, even though he's serving 2 life sentences, he still has to do 5 years additional jail time, 5 years of extended supervision, and 500 hours of community service. So fuck you, Beyer. I opened this episode with a question. What happened here?
Yeah.
I mean, really, I'm struggling with reconciling how a father, even one that made it clear he didn't want his kids, could take their little itty bitty tiny innocent lives. But that's what happened here. Unfortunately, it's shocking. What happened was a fucking father walked into the bedroom of his 2 young children and didn't want them anymore. And he made a decision to take them away from everyone so that he didn't have to pay child support.
Yeah.
That's what fucking happened here.
And to punish their mother.
Yes. The cameras, the interviews, the missing pieces, they all pointed in the same direction. They created a very tight and compelling circumstantial case. The jury only needed 3 hours to react to it. Even so, there's no closure here. This didn't happen that long ago. The pain probably feels as fresh today as it did in 2020.
Yeah.
Like I just, and here we are 6 years on, and I bet you Melissa and Tyler wake up every day as if it started over again.
Mm-hmm.
As if it started over again. As if it started over. I don't know how you get over it. How do you get over it? You know, I thought about looking into where, if I could find any information into where Melissa and Tyler are today, because Kaukauna, like the area that we live in, it's growing, of course, but it's still pretty small town Midwest. And so I just think about how exposed they probably felt, because small town Midwest is small town Midwest. And
Right.
so,
and
anyway, I thought about looking up anything I could find to see where they were. And I decided not to. I felt like it was being an invasion of their privacy, because if they're still in the community, I want them to have some level of anonymity today, if they can get it at all. Because wow, to be defined by the fact that you lost your 5-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter, that would crush any person. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
Did you know about this case?
Mm-mm. I had never heard of it. I did not know that happened in Kaukauna in 2020.
Yeah, because I didn't live in this area like when this happened.
And did you know about this case?
No, I hadn't heard of it.
I never heard anything about it. I don't think it was really in a lot of Now, I will admit, I didn't on every Sunday sit down and read the Post-Crescent. I bet if I did, I would have heard about it.
Right. It's a small enough area that, you know, when something happens,
you usually hear about it.
Yeah.
Never even heard about it.
Wow, that's
And I was
crazy.
like, how did I not know this? How did I not know this? I mean, that's fucking trial of the century happening in Outagamie County in 2022. I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah. Maybe that's good, though, for Melissa and Tyler, that maybe it wasn't blasted all over the place.
And maybe that was intentional. Maybe they asked for some privacy.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I feel like the media is pretty ruthless and doesn't care. But man, that is fucking gut-wrenching.
Isn't that wicked?
I don't like it. It makes me
if you've got littles,
unsettled.
Even if you've got not so littles, hug them extra tight tonight. Yeah. Because, you know, there's moms and dads out there that are grieving over the fact that they can never hug their children anymore. God, it's gut-wrenching. Yeah. It's gut-wrenching. Anyway, if you found this episode compelling, please share with others. Drop us a 5-star review. It really helps our little show out. And don't forget to head over to our website at crimehotelpod.com. Grab yourself some merch. We haven't sort of pushed this. We're the worst salespeople ever. Punch that subscribe button for our YouTube channel. Help us out. Leave a review. Leave a 5-star rating. We have to become friends with those algorithms without, I just don't want to be pushy about it. The whole fucking thing feels schmarmy.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that, goodbye, Jamie.
Goodbye, Carrie. She better take that fucking donut. She fucking licked it.
I did. This is mine.
Okay.
No, I ate it and then I shit it out.
I was a dancing field goal post.
Fine, fuck you too.
The word vasectomy has been far more prevalent in my vocabulary in the last few years.
Cool.
He had to be a whiny little bitch.